1. Hey, college wrestling fans, it's JT1Wrestle here, and I once again have a fellow college wrestling expert on the show with me. Please welcome to the show, Cradlezone.
What's up, guys?
So today the topic we're going to be talking about will be the first of the major NCAA Division One events this year. We're talking about the National Wrestling Coaches Association, the NWCA All-Star Classic. They'll be taking place a little less than a month from now on Saturday, November 1st. The first thing I want to say real quick is that both Cradle Zone and I are still learning about women's wrestling. Neither one of us feel qualified or knowledgeable enough to really talk about those matches. So we're going to skip over those, but I will say this. I have had the opportunity to watch the McBride sisters compete a handful of different times. I absolutely love watching them compete. Both the sisters, all the sisters have a uh I want to say really a Greco background. It's probably not the right word, but they're very, very good at upper body wrestling. A lot of shucks, a lot of duck unders, a lot of arm drags. I really enjoy watching them wrestle. And as I learn more about women's wrestling and get more into women's wrestling, they are some of my favorites. But anyway, we're going to head on into the first match that we're going to talk about is the exhibition between NCAA Division II and NCAA Division III. We have Kyvon Grace of West Liberty, an NCAA Division II finalist last season, taking on Mark Samuel, the NCAA Division III champion last season. These guys have never met, and Grace has only wrestled a handful of NCAA Division III wrestlers. Mark Samuel has only wrestled a handful of NCAA Division II wrestlers. So, Cradle Zone, how do you see this one panning out?
So I know last year, you had Masana Deem. He won it. I'm pretty sure he tech fault hit. This year, I think D2, Von Grace, I think he'll take it, but I think it's going to be a very close match. It won't be a dominating match. I like Samuel a lot. Like you said, great wrestler. These two have never met. They both have a unique style. Grace seems like he's great on top, but kind of reminds me of Wyatt Hendrickson. He's not the best on the bottom position, and Samuel's really at turking people, pinning people, but I still got Grace winning this in a close one.
You know, I've had a really hard time making up my mind of who I'm going to put my money on for this one. There are advantages and disadvantages both ways. The NCAA Division III wrestlers usually wrestle a lot more than the NCAA Division II wrestlers. So I would say if we're looking at this coming down to stamina and conditioning, you got to go with Samuel. However, the NCAA Division II guys, for whatever reason, they wrestle everybody. They wrestle NAIA, they wrestle NJCAA, they wrestle D1. Their schedules are never just D2. So they see a lot of different people in a lot of different areas. So if we're talking about overall experience, then maybe the advantage goes to Grace. So with this one, I have a really hard time picking a winner. I will say that I feel that it's a greater sense of urgency for Samuel because I think it means more for a D3 guy to beat a D2 guy than it does for a D2 guy to beat a D3 guy.
So, so you're saying you got Samuel winning this one?
Oh, you know, you're putting the words in my mouth. Honestly, I don't know. I'm really, really happy to see D2 and D3 represented at this event. So I don't think we're going to see a loser either way as far as the growth of wrestling is concerned. Um, God, since you picked Grace, I'll just pick Samuel just to be different from you.
I think it'll be a really good matchup. It won't be a blowout, but I got Grace winning this one.
All righty. So you got Grace there, and I got Samuel. Let's talk about NCAA Division One now. Our 125-pound match. We got Eddie Ventresca of Virginia Tech taking on Sheldon Seymour of Lehigh. Ventresca thus far has had seventh and fifth place finishes at the NCAA Division One championship. Um, he had a win over last year's national champion Vince Robison of North Carolina State. Sheldon Seymour, tough wrestler, sixth in the D1 Nation last year, and an EIWA champion. So these guys have met before, and Ventresca was 1 point away, 1 point away from getting a major decision with an 11-4 victory over Seymour. So my pick here is going to be Ventresca. Here's what I want to say real quick about Eddie Ventresca that really impresses me about him. Now, Cradlezone may be too young to remember this film. Hell, I'm too young to remember this film. But one of my favorite movies, or favorite movie series anyway, is Superman. And if you remember in Superman Part 2, Clark Kent gives up his superpowers to become a regular person. And then at the end, he gets his powers back and comes back and kicks ass. That reminds me so much of Eddie Ventresca because his freshman year, seventh in the nation, sophomore year, I don't know what happened, injury, sickness, whatever it was. Sophomore year was a nightmare for him. Just terrible. Not everybody can recover from such a season like that. Ventresca not only recovered, he came back and just took names and kicked butt to a fifth place finish last year as a junior. I'm excited to see what he can do this year. My pick here, Eddie Ventresca.
I like that pick, but I'm not counting out Seymour because, like you said, sixth place last year. But he also did take out Luke Lillidahl, and we know how good he is, third place finisher for Penn State. But I'd say I'm in the same boat as you. I'll take Francesca because, like you said, he had a great season. He beat Robinson twice, I believe. I think he was the only one besides Matt Ramos to beat Vincent Robinson last year, which is huge. Fifth place finish. Who did he take out for fifth place? Do you remember?
Seymour. That
Oh,
was
he
the
beat
match.
Seymour.
Yeah.
That's what that match was. Yeah, I'm gonna
Yep.
say I'll take. I'm gonna take Francesca. I have him being a finalist this year. I would like to see him win it. A lot of people, for some reason, think he's a very boring wrestler, but
I
I
don't.
think he's an exciting wrestler to watch, especially what he came back from. So I'm taking Eddie Francesca here.
So Cradlezone and JT1 Wrestler both go with Eddie Ventresca at 125 pounds. Moving on to 133 pounds, we have last year's national champion as well as Big Ten champion Lucas Bird of Illinois taking on Dylan Shaver of Rutgers, who was an All American in 2024 and a Big Ten champion in 2024. Last year, things didn't go as well for him. These guys have met exactly once. Bird won a very close 6-5 match. I'll say this real quick. I'm going to go with Lucas Bird in this match, but I'm going to say this about Dylan Shaver. If Dylan Shaver can pull off this win, what a statement that is for him. What a statement that is for the Rutgers wrestling program. It goes to show, like we were talking about Eddie Ventresca here a while back, having a horrible sophomore year and turning that into a phenomenal junior year. Perhaps Dylan Shaver could do the same thing this season and show himself that, last year was a bad year and they all have them sometimes. What better way to start it off and make your statement than with a win over last year's national champion?
Yeah, I doubt anyone besides Rutgers fans have Shaw winning. Like you said, 2024 All-American, seventh place finisher. He's beaten guys like Dylan Ragusin. He's beaten some other big guys. Ragusin, he's a great wrestler, but Bird is just dominant, man. He beat Drake Ayala twice last year. He's beaten some other great wrestlers. He didn't wrestle in 2024 due to an injury, I believe. But I'm gonna take Lucas Bird. I think it's gonna be very close though. I won't count out Shalva because I think last year Shalva was dealing with an injury and was battling through it. But I'm gonna take Bird here. I'd say honestly, it's gonna be a 1 point match, just like the last time these two met.
I could definitely see that happening. So far we're in agreement. You said Grace, I said Samuel, but then we're both in agreement on Ventresca and both in agreement on Bird. Let's see how we feel at 141 pounds between two-time NCAA Division One champion Jesse Mendez and Red was injured last season, but a Big 12 champion and fifth in the D1 nation in 2024, Anthony Echemendia. Now, here's what I want to say real quick. Echemendia, and I'm probably dating you here because you're a lot younger than me, but are you familiar with the Rocky films at all?
Oh yeah, I love the Rocky films.
They're well, anyway, the first six anyway I'm in love with and I always have been. Echemendia to me is wrestling's version of Apollo Creed. very arrogant, very cocky, will tell you how great he is, will tell you what he can do, will tell you who he can beat. This is a guy that likes to run his mouth. And I don't say that as disparagingly either. I think it's fun. I think it's good for the sport, but he is a very arrogant person. And I mean, this is one of those deals where put your money where your mouth is. If you're that good and you're that great and you're going to be, an Olympic gold medalist for Cuba someday and all that other great stuff, well, show us what you can do. We're going to
Well,
put you against the number one guy, going to put you against the best guy that there is in NCAA Division One wrestling, Jesse Mendez. And if you can beat him and show the world how great you are, let's see it.
well, most of the time he talks smack. He's able to back it up. Big 12 champ 2024, he beat All-American Cale Happel for it. The last time these two met in the semifinals in 24, it was a close match. I think Echemendia only lost by 2 points. I
Yeah, it was
know,
6-4.
yeah, so it was a close match. We know how dominant Jesse Mendez is. During the regular season, he didn't look like himself 100%. I think he was dealing with an injury, but he ended up beating Bo Bartlett in the semis, and then at first he was losing to Brock Hardy, but he destroyed Brock Hardy in the end. But this could be a really close one. I'm gonna take Mendez again, but I would not be surprised at all if Echemendia does win this. But the question is, can he come back from that injury? Because it is tough to come back from the season-ending injury in wrestling.
Yeah, that you made a lot of really good points in what you just said right there, and I feel very similar to how you feel. I'm going to go with Mendez in this one, kind of like I said before, kind of looking at the Rocky versus Apollo type kind of matchup, except this time Rocky's the one with the belt and Apollo's the one going after it. I'm going to go with Mendez as well. I just feel that you know, Mendez is one of those guys that he never gets worked up. He never gets too excited out there. He keeps his composure. I think that will be the difference in the match. And I think we're going to see, I think the kind of match I'm predicting is things starting off really hot and heavy. Really hot and heavy for first period, second period the same way. I think things will slow down by the third period, and I think that's where Mendez will capitalize and get the W.
I agree because both of these guys are very high-paced wrestlers. They're both good on the feet and on bottom, but I think Mendez has the better gas tank. I think he can stay around longer. He just looked more tired last season because he was injured. I'm still taking Mendez in this one.
Well, so far we're in agreement on the first three weights in the of the Division One. All right, let's look at 149 pounds. We have Lachlan McNeil, a former North Carolina Tar Heel, now a Michigan Wolverine. He is a three-time All-American, looking to become a four-time All-American this season. He has been fifth, sixth, and fourth in the NCAA Division One national tournament. And another thing that excites me about him, I think we're looking at a future Commonwealth Games medalist, a future Olympic medalist for Canada someday. He'll be taking on Casey Swiderski, a former Iowa State Cyclone, now Oklahoma State Cowboy, who was unfortunately hurt last year, but seventh in the D1 nation back in 2024. These guys have never met, and I think there's a lot on the line here for both of these guys. Both of these guys want to prove to the school that they're with now that they were worth the investment in the transfer. McNeil wants to show the Wolverines, hey, you guys made a good decision in me, and Swiderski wants to show the Cowboys that, hey, you made a good decision in me. I think this one's going to be a really good, close, tough matchup. I'm going to go with the Canadian on this one. I'm going with McNeil.
So this goes back to my original thing with Echmendia. Swiderski coming off a season-ending injury. Can he push through that? Because we know how good McNeil is. He's a tough wrestler. I believe he was 141 last year, was he? So he's bumping up. He's number three for a reason. He's got some good wins against Real Woods. He's a bronze medalist, I'm pretty sure. And Swiderski's also got some good wins. I think he was third or he was fifth in the Big 12 in 2024. But I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna take Casey Swiderski because I like his style and we know how good Oklahoma State is in their development with David Taylor. So I think Swiderski wins this one, but I think it's gonna go into overtime.
Okay, so you're predicting an overtime. I could see the overtime definitely. I'm still going to stick with McNeil on this one, but so far that is a one of our differences that we do not agree on here. So you got
I
Swiderski, and I have McNeil at 149 pounds. Moving on to
I
100, yeah, moving on to 157 pounds. This is a match that really interests me for a couple of different reasons. We have Dan Cardenas of Stanford, and may we remind the athletic director out at Stanford that they have two wrestlers, and one of NCAA Division One's most prolific events of the season. So it would be nice if you could go on to his Twitter page and perhaps see him credit wrestling for a change instead of being so football and basketball happy all the time. But I'll digress on
huh.
that. He's taking on Ty Waters of West Virginia. Here's what interests me about this. Cardenas redshirted last year and was fourth in the D1 Nation in 2024. Ty Waters was hurt last year and fourth in the D1 Nation at 149 pounds. I think both of these guys have something to prove. When you come off a red shirt, people are always like, well, how good are you going to do? How good are you going to be? Like, how much did you learn and grow and prosper in that red shirt? And also, when you're injured, like we've already spoken about with two other wrestlers, how good are you going to be when you're coming back from an injury? I think this match is big for both of these guys. I think both of these guys could really use this win to start off the season. Um, I think it's going to be Cardenas, though, in a very close match.
So me personally, I'm a huge fan of both of these guys. I've loved Ty Waters since he was in high school. Again, coming off an injury, but before that, he had big wins against Kyle Parker. He beat Lachlan McNeil earlier in the season. I know he's bumping up from 149. He was a big 149 pounder, but they also got a guy that transfer for that. But Cardenas, it really depends how much he developed this offseason. I don't know who Stanford. I know Stanford has Hayden Hidley as an assistant coach, and we know how good he is. But I think this one's going to come down to the wire. But I think Ty Waters is going to take this one because this is probably the best match to watch, in my opinion, and the one that you really can't decide who's really going to come out on top because anything could happen in this matchup. But I am going to take Ty Waters of West Virginia in a very close one. I think he's going to make a statement. I think he's going to be a contender this year for West Virginia.
I can definitely see that. I could definitely see that. West Virginia, years ago had Greg Jones. He was their, ultimate star that they had. They'd be kind of looking for somebody to take that place once again. And I can see Waters being the kind of guy that could very well do that. So I definitely agree with you on his potential. Just have to see if he is
If he can
healed up
live up
enough
to
from
that
that
hype.
injury last year. All right, 165 pounds. We have another Stanford wrestler, two-time All-American with back-to-back sixth-place finishes. We have Hunter Garvin, and we also have at 165 pounds Max Brignola of Lehigh, a two-time NCAA Division One qualifier who redshirted last year in 2025. So here's what I got to say about this. So Hunter Garvin is an Iowa kid. I remember watching him in high school as well. Um, Great technique, just a phenomenal technician. Really is one of these guys that first he's going to score all his points early. This is the kind of guy that's going to score all his points in the first and second period. And this is just an observation. I hope I don't get too many people on my back about this and angry with me. But the one thing that Garvin seems to lack is a gas tank. He seems to really gas by the end of the third period. Um, I think he's the kind of guy when he enters tournaments, Midlands, CKLV, NCAA Division Ones. He's the kind of guy that could probably place a lot higher, but he just goes for broke in those first, second, and quarterfinal matches, and then he ends up kind of slipping to a sixth place finish. And I think that has a lot to do with stamina and conditioning. So I would say I'm going with Garvin in this match, but if Brignola can keep it close or even get ahead a little bit and they can go into the third period and Brignola takes it to Garvin, I don't know if Garvin will be able to hold him off in the third period. So I would say if Garvin can build up a big lead in the first and second period, then I think I'm going to go with Garvin on this one. But God, if Brignola can keep it close, I don't think Garvin can hold him off in the third. That's my prediction for the match.
Yeah, anytime I've watched Garvin against guys like Peyton Hall, Terrell Bearclaw, he's always starts out hot. He usually gets the first takedown. And last year at the All-Star Classic, he was beating Peyton Hall and looked like he was going to, but it looked like he got tired out. Like you said, his stamina isn't the best. He has good stamina for the first two periods, but that third period, it's just gone. But I think Rignola can win this one, but I think Garvin has improved his stamina a lot this offseason, especially since Cardenas is back in the fold. And I know Cardenas is great with stamina. So I'm gonna take Hunter Garvin for this one, but I think it's gonna be very close. It won't be a blowout like most people think. But I wouldn't be surprised if Rignola does get an upset.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I are on the same page with this one. We're both going to go with Garvin, but we're not going to be too surprised if Brignola pulls this one off. All right, 174 pounds. We have sensational sophomore Simon Reis of Cornell. He was fifth in the D1 Nation last year, also fourth at the Cliff Keen Las Vegas Invitational. He'll be taking on Lenny Pinto, who is a two-time NCAA Division One round of 12 finisher, was seventh at CKLV in 2024 and finished one match away from placing last year. Was also a Big Ten champion. Excuse me. Big Ten runner up last year. Let me correct myself. So far, these guys have met twice, very close matches. Reese has won both of them. He won a 2-1 decision as well as a 6-4 decision. Now, I'm going to say something that I have been hearing since I was a kid. You hear this in football, you hear this in wrestling, basketball, baseball, every single sport. It is hard to be a really good competitor 3 times in a row. That's almost impossible sometimes. On top of it, Lenny Pinto is probably one of the best wrestlers, if not the best wrestler, 174 pounds, yet to make All American status. He's coming in with a chip on his shoulder. He's got something to prove. He's that wolf that's climbing the mountain. He is hungry. He is starved. I think that's going to propel him in a huge one over Reese. And I think this time Pinto gets the win.
Yeah, a lot of people count out Lenny Pinto. I can see why though. Like when you're a former high recruit, I think he was the number one recruit in his class, and you've yet to All-American. There's going to be a chip on your shoulder. He's a transfer from Nebraska. He's coming into Rutgers. He needed a change, and so far, what I've heard this offseason, he's looked really well. His technique has improved. His defense has gotten better. That I think that was one of his big weaknesses is he relied way too much on his offense, and a lot of the matches he was in was very high scoring, but I'm also a big fan of Simon Ruse, fifth place last year. He had some good wins. Uh, I think he almost beat Levi Haynes. I'm pretty sure it was pretty close,
It
wasn't
was
it?
it was a good match. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say Ruse takes this one, but Pinto can put up a fight, and I think Pinto could win this. But for now, I think Ruse is gonna get the win. But I think this one goes into overtime as well.
Predicting a lot of overtimes. I have yet to hear you say tiebreakers. Think we'll get to any tiebreakers in this dual meet?
Well, there is one, but I'll save that. I'll save that later.
All right, good deal. So thus far, we have agreement at 125, agreement at 133. We disagree at, agreement at 141, disagreement at 149, disagreement at 157, agreement at 165, and disagreement at 174. Let's say if we're on the same page or on a different page here at 184 pounds. Here we have Jackson Smith of Maryland, who was sixth place in the D1 Nation last year, taking on a redshirt freshman Zach Ryder, a former Penn State Nittany Lion, now Oklahoma State Cowboy. We didn't see a whole heck of a lot of him yet. He did win the Southern Scuffle last year, and this is his opportunity as a freshman to show like how good he is or how good he isn't. But I do want to say this. I think Jackson Smith, we're talking about a little bit of having a little bit of a chip on your shoulder here. Jackson Smith is from Maryland, a school that usually doesn't get a lot of credit or doesn't get a lot of recognition. And on top of it, he's a Georgia boy. And I'm one of these people that, and I've said this for years, that the kids from the southeast, the kids from Georgia, from Florida, from Alabama, so on and so forth, a lot of times they're looked over. Even though we've seen some great kids from that area, Whit Durden, Chris Rodriguez, I could keep going on about some great wrestlers from Georgia. They never seem to get the respect that they deserve versus a guy like Zach Ryder. He's from an area that everybody's like, oh, let's talk about this and how great the high school wrestling here is. And it is. I'm not denying that. It is that great. But I think this gives Jackson Smith, a Georgia kid from Maryland, an opportunity to show that, hey, there's a reason to pay attention to us too. So I'm going to go with Smith on this one. I think A lot of people are picking Ryder, but I think Smith is going to show that, hey, experience means something here too.
When looking at Ryder, a lot of people hype him up, but in a lot of matches I've seen from him, it's very close matches and guys he should destroy, like the Southern Cup final against AJ Heek of Northern Colorado. It was a very close match, which surprises me because you would expect someone like Zack Ryder to blow out these guys and you know, but I think if Ryder can win this one, it proves he's an All-American threat. He can place high. Smith, he's fourth right now in the rankings by Flow. Uh, Honestly, I'd say this is 50-50, but I think Jackson Smith is going to take this one, and I think he's going to make a name for himself, like you said, a kid from Georgia. So I'm going to take Jackson Smith for this one as well.
So we're in agreement at 184 pounds. All right. Moving on to 197 pounds. You were saying earlier how you thought the best match of the night might be between Dan Cardenas and Ty Waters. I actually think 197 could be the best match of the night. You got Joey Novak, who was fifth in the nation last year, has thus far been a two-time CKLV place winner with finishes of eighth and fourth, taking on Stephen Little of Little Rock, who has thus far been seventh and sixth in the NCAA Division One nation, and he was a Pac-12 champion 2024, Pac-12 runner-up in 2025. These guys have met twice and they both majored each other. Now, how often do you see something like that? Novak has an 8-0 major decision over Stephen Little, and Stephen Little has a 13-5 major decision over Joey Novak. I think this is going to be great for both of these guys to get a win here. Wyoming, as we talked about before in previous videos, has put in so much uh, money into their resources, into their program. So you'd like to see them get a win for that reason. On the same hand, you'd also love to see Little Rock get a win because I mean, you're not old enough to probably understand the reference I'm going to make here, but I'm telling you, man, when I was a kid, when I was your age, if you told somebody someday we're going to have NCAA Division One wrestling in Arkansas, they would have had you locked up. They would have thrown you into an insane asylum, put you in a straitjacket, and told you you're a loony. There's no way anybody believed that we would ever see wrestling, especially at the NCAA Division One level in Arkansas. And today, not only do we have D1 wrestling in Arkansas, we have a D1 wrestling program that is producing All Americans and the type of talent like Stephen Little. So, on this particular one, I literally think this is 50-50. I'm anxious to see if this time I don't think it's going to be a butt whooping. I don't see either one of these guys majoring the other. I think it's going to be a closer match this time. I can see this one going either way, but just going with the old gut, I'm going with Stephen Little on this one.
So what I liked about Little, he has great defense, doesn't get scored on a whole lot, but the problem with him is the past 2 years he gets injured and he doesn't place as high as he should because I think this guy's a top five, no, top four finisher when he's healthy. But his offense is really great. I like his offense. I like Little a lot. I think if he's healthy coming into this, he's going to win this. But I'm also a big fan of Joey Novak. He was I think he placed fourth at the Big 12 championship last season, which was a big surprise. He was predicted to finish at least the runner up, but he had a great tournament, finished fifth. And I honestly think Little will take this one, but Novak can also win it. He's got a great offense. He's really good on defense. He likes for people to shoot at his leg, and he's good at turking people as well. But I'm gonna take Stephen Little from Little Rock for this one.
All right, so another agreement between Cradlezone and JT1 Wrestle. Our last match of the night, and I'm not sure if they're going to do them in chronological order, but we're talking about them chronologically anyway, will be at heavyweight between Younger Bastida, another future Cuban medalist for Cuba someday, I believe. We'll take on Ty, and I'm gonna butcher his last name. I think it's pronounced Ty Gadiali. Is how you pronounce that, maybe? And if I'm wrong on the pronunciation, I apologize about that. A former Campbell Camel, that's now at the University of Michigan, was eighth in the D1 Nation in 2024, and redshirted last year. Bastida was fifth all the way back in 2022. This is a guy that has just unfortunately battled a series of injuries. He was one match away from being an All American in 2024.
Oh, he
Uh,
did. He placed eighth.
I was thinking he didn't place.
No, he placed eighth. I remember.
Okay,
I
so he's a
watched it.
two-time All-American. I was thinking he was one match away from placing. Excuse me if I was wrong on that. I apologize. Um, Beginning back here to Bastida and Gael Dali. Bastida, and this is something I think a lot of people forget, and take it for what it's worth. He's one of the last losses that NCAA Division One champion Wyatt Hendrickson ever suffered. He beat Hendrickson 10-7 in a really wild, crazy match. What does that mean? I don't know. Hendrickson was still at Air Force. I think he improved a lot once he went to Oklahoma State, but nevertheless, that's still a win over Hendrickson. I think this is going to be a really good one. I'm anxious to see how both of these guys are. Bastida, is he 100%? Godality, he redshirted last year. It's one of those deals where you can see it going either way. You were talking about your tiebreaker. I have a feeling this is probably where you're going to go with that. I see this being a very, very good match between two extremely talented wrestlers, even two that perhaps could contend for the national title this year. I'm going to go with Bastida though. That maybe that's just the Iowa in me for Iowa State, but I'm going to go with Bastida.
So this is the tiebreaker match. So this is an interesting match. Yonga and Tay, they're both coming off of medical red shirts. Tay, I think he had a leg injury. Yonga, I think it was something with his hand because he suffered that in 2024 when he lost to Lucas Davidson. But Yonga, I know he didn't place in 2024, which was a huge surprise. He was the second seed. 2023, I'm pretty sure he placed as a 197 pounder. I think Yonga has a chance to win this, but I think Tay has a good two really good chances to win this because he's got great wins over guys like Nick Feldman, former All-American in 2024. He had a medical retro last year, but Michigan is known for their heavyweights. Last year they got Josh Heidelsman from Oklahoma. They turned him into an All-American with the seventh place finish, and we know Tay already an All-American. So there's a huge chance that Tay can win this, but also a big chance
Yeah,
Younger can win this because he was
I
undefeated last year
yeah,
before
I
he.
I agree with you. So real quick here, just so the wrestling fans know, um, so we were wondering whether Bastida was an All-American in 2024 or not. He lost in the round of 12 match to place to Yaroslav Slavikowski of Rutgers. So he was one match away from being an All-American in 2024. But so
Yeah, that
we
was that was huge. I was there. That was a big upset.
Yeah. And like he said, I remember he talked about that on his Twitter page shortly after that loss and just said that he had absolutely not he couldn't grip, he had no strength whatsoever in that hand, which, a lot of times, we've talked about this before as well. Wrestling can be a very cryptic sport. We want to keep everything away from everybody. And there's reasons for that. I understand that. You don't want your opponents to know that, hey, my left shoulder is injured and my right knee is shoulder. You want to keep that stuff away from the public eye. But at the same time, it's kind of weird from a fan point, from a media point, because it's like, how good this guy is. And this guy should be wrestling way better than what he is wrestling. Why? Why is he not performing up to this level? And we're given nothing in return until maybe much later. I mean, obviously, like take like Matt McDonough from Iowa, national champion as a freshman, national runner up as a sophomore, national champion as a junior, and then doesn't even place as a senior. What's going on? And we didn't find out what's going on until probably what they probably announced it in June that he had that back injury that kept him from being able to pull in the legs and pull in the arms for arm bars and stuff like that. But that's just the way wrestling kind of is sometimes. We don't find out about stuff like that, so we just have to guess, why is a guy not performing up to level? We don't know, and probably not going to find out. There's something we have to accept. But anyway, that's our picks for the NWCA All-Star Classic here coming up on November 1st. That'll be a Saturday. And as you can see, there are going to be some phenomenal matches, a lot of really great wrestling at this event, and hopefully it's a huge success for our sport.
I hope so. But this, the All-Star Classic usually answers a lot of questions. Can this guy beat this guy? Is he an All-American threat? Is he a national contender threat? Has he developed or has he came back from an injury? We got a lot of guys on here. We got like four guys that are coming back from injury. So it's gonna be
Yeah,
interesting.
it will be. It definitely will be. And we have a lot of guys coming off a red shirt as well. So definitely going to be a great event. I'm looking very forward to it. I once again want to thank Cradle Zone for being a part of the program today. And then JT1 Wrestle, let's get to the action.